Hello, hello. Breakpoint now. Welcome. We are at episode 12. There's been a dozen of these. Um, and I'm proud to say that. This started out as a pandemic idea, a way to kind of get our name out there a little bit more, talk to the artists that we work with, talk to some industry folks, and it's going well. And we're now up to a dozen of these episodes, and just want to thank our new sponsors, Artist Rewards, who we had on previously, and also the Plugs earbuds at gettheplugs.com. Make sure you check out both of those beautiful companies. And my name is Isaac Gordon. Breakpoint Now is a podcast, a live stream, whatever you want to call it, brought to you by Breakpoint Booking. We are a boutique talent agency. We represent a lot of developing breaking acts. That's our passion. We like working with developing acts, helping them reach their goals and build their teams. We also work with some nationally recognized talent, some world-renowned recognized talent, I should say. And we work hard for our artists. To find out more about us, you can visit us online, www.breakpointbooking.com. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with someone who I've worked with on a few projects, someone who's been in the industry for quite some time and has worked on the music distribution side. His name is Jeep Ward, and I am going to bring him in here to talk to him and, just sit down and shoot the breeze about some music stuff as soon as I can remember how to do it. Okay, here we go. Jeep, are you there?
I'm here. How's it going?
Oh, going well. Awesome. Thank you for taking the time. I really appreciate it. You're a wealth of knowledge. Let me turn this off, which I should have done.
I don't know. I mean, that might be going a little too far.
No, trust me, you're definitely a wealth of knowledge. You've definitely informed me and taught me quite a bit on the music industry, especially the release process. So I'm sure you're going to be a wealth of knowledge here and have a lot to share.
Awesome. Well, I'm happy to be here.
So, good. So this industry and this year, what a year. I feel like it's been
loudly, right?
Yeah, I feel like it's been 3 years in 1 year somehow crammed, especially me personally, because I moved across the country during this time. Yeah, I moved from California out to Ohio, where I'm at now. So I feel like I had my pre-pandemic life in California, my pandemic life in California, my move life, and then now my I thought the pandemic would be over life by now, and my new Ohio life. So it's just been a ride. How has it been for you?
It's actually been relatively smooth.
Okay, good.
So I moved in like 7 years. I moved across the country and to Oakland, and then moved back here to take a job with Red Eye in distribution. Where I live now in Durham, North Carolina. During the pandemic, I actually purchased a house in Durham and moved into the house. So it was a little bit strange, but honestly, it was the easiest move I'd ever made. Because as you can tell, I have a couple pieces of vinyl.
Yeah,
and I've moved across the country twice with it, and luckily both times I've been able to do it relatively cheaply for the amount of records, which is in the vicinity of 8,000 to 10,000 pieces of vinyl.
My God.
So yeah, it's a lot. If I can advise women of anything, don't move in with a DJ, because you'll be, you think you're gonna have closet space? No. Not gonna happen. So.
Using up every bit of it. So one thing I know about music industry professionals is that everybody's got kind of had their start as a musician or as some form of, I mean, we all love music. You got to have some sort of passion about it to be in it. So, I mean, for me, I was a hip hop artist back in the late '90s, and then got into the business side of it. And for you, I believe you DJ'd. So I'd like for you to talk a little bit about that. Tell us about how you got into the music industry, your passion behind it, and I'll let you just kind of talk.
So my start of loving music was I was just a really big radio fan as a little kid. So I'm 41. So I started listening to the radio, 87, 88. And, just listening to the pop radio that was on, your top 40 radio. I listened to Casey Kasem. I listened to, burgeoning hip hop stations. I grew up for the most part in Connecticut. So, as time progressed and I got more and more into specifically hip hop music, I started listening to Stretch and Bobbito on Columbia University Radio. Most Thursday nights I would fall asleep to Stretch and Bobbito, hearing unsigned Nas, unsigned Biggie, people who I ended up working with in the industry later on, who were like unsigned or just starting out. So that was initially my love of radio. And then in high school, I started going to raves and exposing myself to DJ culture. And I liked going and dancing all night, except when you like hit the door at 10 a.m. and you're like, the sun. But other than that, it was a great time had by all. So I was really incredibly intrigued by DJ culture, and sort of at that time, to me, it seemed like such a interesting underground thing that had not been done before. And I think in the early '90s, when rave culture was happening, as was sort of a real burgeoning turntablist culture, where turntablism through the DMCs and the sort of shift of the DMCs between just being, a couple guys from the clubs, being like, check out how dope I can mix two records, to like scratching and juggling and doing all the tricks that turntablists do. So my love of hip hop always superseded my interest in sort of mixed style DJing. So I got a turntable in a box setup of two terrible belt drive turntables. I think it was a DJ Jazzy Jeff Gemini Scratchmaster mixer, and a terrible microphone and whatnot. But that was the basis for me to learn being a DJ. So I just sort of stuck with it, even though I had terrible equipment, and I worked all summer to buy myself a set of Techniques, which are actually the very same turntables that are behind me. So that just goes to show you how good those turntables are. So I bought those turntables when I was 19 from a store called Abracadabra in Long Island. Yeah. And so, I DJ'd a bunch in college. My junior year, or my sophomore year rather, in college, I was DJing like 3-4 nights a week. And it was just a really wild time. I didn't have any classes before noon, so it was just a crazy time for me. I lived in a suite with a whole bunch of dudes who, by the end of the year, were all in this particular frat called the Last Angry Africans, which was Malik Sigma Psi. And then there was like me showing up like all hours of the night, like being all drunk and like scratching records and whatnot. So it was an interesting time. So I just stuck with DJing throughout college. DJ'd throughout college, made some money or whatever, but it was just more doing it for the love. And I was a very, very involved in the like backpack underground independent rap scene at the time, which in the late 90s to early 2000s was like a golden age of being able to buy vinyl and have things that, like, more things that I cared about personally came out on vinyl then than now, which is interesting because vinyl is so popular. But back then, when nobody cared about it, it was very cheap to make vinyl. You could press up vinyl for $1 a record, which is like that's CD level cost. So the expense of vinyl now means that, like, up and coming burgeoning artists are not able to put out their music on vinyl, or at least not to an extent where it's widely available. But that being said, I can talk a little bit more about that when I get into distribution. But that being said, I got a degree in audio radio engineering, went into commercial radio. Didn't really, I mean, I enjoyed engineering, but as far as being an on-air personality, I could have gone that route. I just sort of opted not to and got more involved in community radio as far as like being a radio personality goes. And just kept with turntablist, sort of open format turntablist DJing, and started DJing in New York. Got down with like a hip hop crew called Mind Spray Forever, and just I toured all over the world and all over the country, DJing for underground rap acts. I've DJed for some acts who are nationally, internationally known, but for the most part, I've done a lot of DIY touring, which is it's not for the faint of heart, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
You'll be on tour for 6 weeks and you come home with $400. For me, all my travel was paid for. The experiences that I'm able to have and the people that I've met along those tours are priceless to me. But if you're into it to make money, I would suggest staying home and just trying to be a club DJ. Which I was also a big club DJ in New York for 4 or 5 years, just supporting myself, only doing that as well. And then when I moved to Oakland, I supported myself only with DJing as well as running a record label. So DJing has provided a lot of avenues for me to be able to, hustle different opportunities, which put me more in the music industry than previously. If I had just only been caring about DJing and not seeing the other avenues that I could pursue through DJing and through like being able to network with the right people, who knows what I would be doing. But, I took that opportunity as an artist to get involved in the business aspect of music, which, has allowed me to be able to buy a home and have health insurance and be relatively unfazed by COVID, aside from having to wear a mask and take proper precautions. So, that's sort of a nickel tour of what I've done. But I've DJed a show in all 48 continental states. I've
Nice.
DJed in 10 different countries, and I'm always looking for more avenues. For example, I had an instance where I had to contact a record label in Finland about basically a song that one of their artists put out was completely stole a very recognizable piece of a producer that I'm friends with, as well as put out many records by. So I contacted them, and it was an amicable thing. I didn't get mad about it or whatever, but I said, hey, this, and this, you kind of owe us. And they were like, oh, snap, we're caught. And it was an easy process altogether, but sort of in interacting with that label, with that label contact, we were talking about Europe, and I was like, oh yeah, I love going to blah, 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 this area and this area. And we just sort of started chatting, and, and so towards the end, he was like, if you ever want to come out here and DJ, we'd love to host you. Cause I sent him over a couple things, routines done recently or whatever. And he's like, we'd love to have you, once the pandemic's over, let's talk, and I'd love to bring you out here. So, those are the types of avenues that, like, if you're, I don't want to say like on your grind or whatever, but, if you have your eyes open for opportunities, getting in as an artist, like yourself, creating a booking agency, going more towards, the administration aspect of the business, and understanding that, like, it doesn't mean you failed as an artist. It just means that you're able to be progressing yourself more as a person in the industry in a different area. It's like when people start off as rappers and find out they make beats better and just stop rapping.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Very cool. And there's a lot to unpack there. One thing I really was interested in is you said, oh, we're caught, but let's work it out. I feel like a lot of artists kind of take that chance and then figure, hey, if it happens, we'll work it out. What are your what's your advice on that?
Well,
I'll tell you what, I hear that a lot.
I mean, I can't say, I would never say willfully break copyright laws.
Yeah, of course.
But I will say that nobody is just going to sue your ass right off the bat. You will always get a cease and desist letter before any legal action happens. If they do take legal action immediately, then you must have really messed up. But 9.5 times out of 10, you'll get a, hey, you can't do this, you got to stop, before anybody starts trying to impose a fine or some type of legal action happens. That's all I'll say about it. The choice is up to the artist or the entity who's engaging in, possibly willful copyright illegal behavior. But I do know that, if you're looking to expand yourself and, it's a possibility, but again, like I said, I would never willfully say people should break copyright laws.
And let me just remind everybody that Jeep is a music distribution professional. He is not a lawyer, and not here offering any sort of legal advice.
Right.
All right, so let's talk a bit about music distribution and what you're doing now. How has that world been affected by this pandemic, both positively and negatively? Could you talk a little bit about that? I mean, working for a company as big as Red Eye Worldwide, I'm sure you have a perspective on this, and I'd love to hear it.
Sure. So what happened with the pandemic is, so many stores immediately snapped shut, but unlike a lot of industries like independent restaurants, things like that, most independent retail, as well as larger larger outlets like Amazon or whatever, they were able to pivot to not just offering their services or their goods online, but being able to actively drive traffic. So I think that everybody, in March to April, were like, oh my God, the sky is falling. And it's very lucky that, the need for music, whether it be catalog or new music, never went anywhere. And as far as physical sales go, because touring is not happening, for the foreseeable future, people who are the ones who are like, I'm only going to go to the show and spend my dollar directly to the band and put it right in the band's pocket, they're still wanting to get those albums. They just need to buy it from somewhere else. So those types of purchase-minded people are now making those purchases from their local record shop or finding somebody who they agree with to be able to make those purchases from. So the music industry, I can't say it's 100% pre-COVID levels, but our bounce back as far as music industry goes, in terms of both digital and physical, has been relatively good to see, in terms of what has actually happened and how sales have recovered from what was a very, very dark time for everybody. That end of March, beginning of April was like, are we going to be Mad Max by May?
Yeah, pretty much.
So it's been an interesting time, but I've been very lucky being part of an industry such as music, where music is whether you are a casual listener or not, music is an integral part of everyone's life, whether they really think about it or not.
Very true.
It's been amazing to see people really coming out and supporting their local record shops and ensuring that they stay open. I mean, I know for the two record store day drops that have happened, it's certainly not. It would be naive to say that those two drops have made up for a normal record store day being able to happen. But considering the situation, they've gone extremely well.
It's music's resilient. I'm really hoping that organizations like NIVA and NITO can help push and bring forth, even more of some saving grace to just some of the terrible things that have happened. A lot of businesses going out of business. But with that being said, music is resilient. It's good to see your sector somewhat thriving through all of this. And, Spotify, I'm curious, digital distribution, a lot of, people assume that is the majority of music right now, that everybody is streaming. But you mentioned the record stores, you mentioned, the brick and mortar stuff and how important that still is. But I am curious, was there a spike? Was there a dip in digital distribution? Are there more people listening online nowadays? Or is it, What's going on there?
So in terms of physical versus digital distribution, part of that is also how important is the physical side to your distributor. I mean, I know for the company that I work for, physical distribution, especially to independent retail, is very, very core to what we try to do for all of our labels. But that being said, digital distribution is, I think what happened was a lot of people assumed everybody's going to be online, everybody's working from home, doing Zoom meetings, everybody's going to just be streaming all day, every day, which what they didn't account for is all the distractions that you have at home that are keeping you from doing, like, from throwing on the headphones and being like power mode at work, right? You have your dog, your cat, your kids, your partner. So the type of listening has been much more up and down in those terms. And then you also have things like cafes or bars that are just like going on, the like lean back listen playlist for, Apple Music or Spotify or whatever, and literally streaming those 12, 15, 18 hours a day, which, like, those listens are missing. So what happened is digital actually took a dip, which people did not expect. Although YouTube specifically was one that maintained a pretty strong presence. I mean, none of them, like, it's not like any of them were in risk of going out of business or anything like that. But listening dipped, which most people were like, huh? And then when you really looked at it, you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense as to why listenership dipped, because you don't have the people who are driving to work or listening to their favorite playlist or whatever playlist they have, as well as all these retail outlets that depend on streaming services to be able to provide their soundtrack for the day. So
it makes perfect sense. A lot of reasoning there. I want to get to the good stuff because, like I said, we do represent and work with a lot of developing acts. Myself, I've worked on a few projects with you for artists that I've managed. And I think that this information is kind of the meat and potatoes of what a lot of artists need to hear. So let me get to these questions. I could literally just ask you questions all day, and I don't want to go over our time frame here. So, what should artists have prepared when they're ready to release? I know that's such a broad question, but what are you expecting when an artist manager or an artist is ready to, like, okay, I want to get this out? What should they have in place? Just the basic stuff.
So what they should have in place is they should have a plan that is based around more than just, I assume I'm going to put this up digitally and I'm hoping to get playlisting. The biggest thing is, yes, playlisting is an important aspect to your marketing plan, but you need to have a rounded marketing plan that's going to include things like, digital ads through Facebook, Instagram, those types of things. And the amount of targeting and audience you can pare it down to for the money you're going to pay is unbelievable. If it were 10, 15, 20 years ago, you'd be paying $10,000 for something that you can throw $150 at on Facebook now. So there's a lot of tools that are available to you to be able to raise the visibility or release beyond getting added to something via a DSP. So those are the types of things that I want to see an artist or a team come to me with, saying, hey, we're reaching out to these press outlets. We have these types of soft confirms for, like, the first track premiere or whatever. Or, like, we're at least reaching out. We have PR booked, or we are individually reaching out to these outlets, hoping to hear something back from, like, we have somebody who's a contact over at Ghetto Blaster or whatever. Like, those types of things that are, like, more than, we're going to put it out and see what happens. Like, taking a step back, being like, okay, the music's great. We want to see, how is this going to be raised visibly so that, like, the fan base for this artist, which may be 400, 500, 1,000, 1,500, 10,000, whatever, can expand. Because no matter how big you are, you could always get bigger. Like, Justin Bieber, that guy probably, is huge, but I guarantee he's still gaining new fans every day, and his
Yep.
plans are to gain more fans every day, no matter how big he is. I don't think there's one artist out there that's like, you know what, I got enough fans. I don't think I need to try to reach new fans. So that should be the crux of what you are doing, no matter whether you're Justin Bieber or Jimmy from the Block, who's putting out his first mixtape. Your plan should be how to raise the visibility of your release and how to be able to garner fans, and there's like a couple different tiers of how your fans should be. There should be your core fans, people who are already actively supporting you. And then there should be your sort of like fans who will generally pick up your stuff, but they're not actively seeking out your stuff on their own. And there are fringe fans who are people who may have heard some of your stuff, may like you, may not know what your name is. Those are the type of people that you're constantly in like a sort of ballet to try and convert those people into fans who will, if they see something from you, be like, great, I like that person, I will click on it and buy it. Right? That's the conversion ballet that you're always doing. And to be able to do that, you have to be spending a little bit money on advertising if possible. Hitting up contacts, whether it be on your own to press outlets, and it doesn't have to be Pitchfork. My advice to somebody who's DIY or whatever is take a look at what the blogosphere is like. What sites are you finding information from that are low tier, mid tier, easily contactable, and then sort of go from there. Build a list, 30 sites, 10 that should be easy to be able to book something on. So, it's like when you're applying for colleges, you have easy, reach, and mid tier. You should be looking at those types of targets in terms of press outlets. If you're doing it on your own, and if you're working with a PR rep, because if you're working with PR and you're making their job a lot easier, they're going to be able to do a lot more for you because they know that you're invested. You're not just throwing money at something and being like, make some ish happen. So those are all the things that you need to be investing in yourself to be able to show everybody else why they should care about this project.
Okay. God, I could just ask you questions all day. In terms of like, you mentioned this fictional developing artist, Jimmy from the Block. I think that's who it was. All right. So let's talk about him for a second. And what I like to say, the elephant in the room, at least it's an elephant for me, because, having managed artists, one of the big things that I get is, hey, I just finished this album today. Let's get it out tomorrow. And it drives me insane because I get the passion behind it. I get that, I got fans out there, they want to hear me. Talk about the being patient and what type of timeline artists should really have when releasing music.
Sure. Absolutely. For an album, at the very least, you should be working on on the short end, you should be working on a 90-day timeline at the very least. And that's 90 days from having masters in hand and putting it up to whatever distribution services, however you're going to be able to distribute your release. From then it going in, your album should not be coming out prior to 90 days before that.
Ooh, they don't want to hear that.
Yeah, absolutely. Nobody does. And as an artist myself, I understand by the time you finish a project, you're already over it. You've already been, working on other ideas that you're even more excited about than what you have in the chamber. But the problem is, if you don't set yourself up for success, if you just throw something out there without a plan, without trying to look at who your audience is, or even thinking about your audience. Like the biggest thing that I find with a lot of emerging artists is they have no idea what their audience is or who their audience is. If you don't know who to pitch to, how can you pitch yourself for success? And that's a huge crux of being able to properly promote yourself. You have to understand what your lane is to be able to fill that lane. If you think your audience is, well, everybody, then you obviously don't know who your audience is.
Yeah.
So I think that's probably similar to how organizations have to come up with a mission statement. Similar for an artist, you have to understand what your audience is before you can even take that step forward to setting up a release for success. If you just put it out there and hope for the best, then you didn't do anything except for set yourself up for failure or or a random success. And a random success is not something that can be replicated. So there's no point in having it. Like, it's great, but at the same time, if you can't replicate it or have a step-by-step or have some type of a process that's working towards that same goal, then you might as well have not had that success to begin with.
I'm not going to ask the cliche question of how important is Spotify. We all know that they're leading right now and they're very important. Talk about lead time for Spotify playlist. I know a lot of artists are like, hey, I want to get on a playlist. I want to get on a playlist.
Right.
How do they do that? What's realistic? Because, again, I want to release tomorrow. So
right.
Talk a little bit about that.
At the very least, I can't speak for all, but I know that, like, the company that I work for, we need at least 5 business days to guarantee that your song or project is going to be live on all the DSPs that we work with. So that's bare minimum, but that means I'm probably not going to pitch it I'll tell our DSP reps when I have a phone call with them. I might send an email, but it doesn't mean that I feel confident that anything is going to happen other than it'll go live. For any promotion that you want to do, having a month's lead time to when it's added to before it comes out is a really great, it's a really great timeline to be able to get it into people's hands, to be able to touch and feel it. However you're going to pitch it via your back end on Spotify or whatever, you want to be able to give those reps as much time as possible.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again, same as the 90-day timeline. That's the most important thing, is being able to give yourself as an emerging artist enough time to be heard by somebody who might be able to get behind your project. And that's really the crux of it, is that you can't expect somebody, unless you are a known commodity, you cannot expect to have 5 days turnaround or 1 day turnaround, or like if you add something to Spotify and then a week later you pitch it, or like you add it to Spotify, you pitch it, and your release is coming out a week later. That's definitely not going to be enough time to filter into anybody in the programming department, because it's already going to be out by the time it reaches anybody.
You're not giving yourself a chance as an artist at all. And please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but the way a lot of this works is you have specific reps that have meetings on a weekly basis with these outlets, whether it's Spotify, whether it's Apple Music, whether it's Video or whoever it is. You got to allow that time for those meetings to happen. And sometimes they may have already have a full meeting on 1 week. So you may need that extra time so that you give yourself some opportunity on those future weeks for your stuff to slide in there to be pitched correctly. So the time helps.
Yeah, exactly. And also, being an emerging artist, you're also competing for programming with known commodities, also with, people who are in Universal Music Group, Sony Music. Mm-hmm. Those artists are all filling up those playlist slots. So for you to be able to get slotted into one of those playlists, the best way to think about it is a playlisting for a DSP is a value for value trade. Mm-hmm. So if they say, okay, we're going to put you in New Music Friday, let's say, right? We're going to put you in New Music Friday. Why? Because A, we like the music, but having good music is that's the base level of anything. So what else are they going to get besides a really good song from a really, really great and dedicated artist? Well, they're going to get consistent posting on social media, driving to that service and to that playlist to hopefully get more people converted to that service. That's what these playlists are really doing, is saying, hey, we have all these great artists on this one playlist. Check out how dope this playlist is. You can, if you join our service, you'll be able to use this playlist and a whole lot more on a regular basis, right? So that's all that they want to see, is they want to see you're going to be a good partner and tell everybody that you can that, hey, I love Spotify. They put me on this playlist. You should check them out at Spotify. Or even without the carrot of being added to something, that you're going to drive traffic to that service. And if you're not driving traffic to that service, if you're not engaging with that service by regularly updating your bio, putting pictures on your bio, making sure that you're logging into the back end as your Spotify for Artists or your Apple for Artists or whatever service you are focusing on, If that, because that service knows,
Mm-hmm.
if you are in contention and you get to a point where they're going to look at you and they have the choice between somebody who has a regularly updated bio, has pictures, has created a playlist that they can promote to drive traffic to the service, and then you with zero interaction with the service, who are they going to pick?
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it does mean something when you tag Spotify and iTunes, even as a developing artist. I know a lot of artists feel those companies are so big, they're not paying attention to me. They're not going to know if I tag them. It's just kind of me wasting a tag or something like that. But it's not true.
Finite amount of tags anyway, right?
But it's not true though. They are paying attention, and that can help give you an edge over another artist because you show that you actually care, that you are driving traffic back. I could sit here and go on. These typically run for about a half an hour. So I might have to bring you back. I have more questions.
I'd be more than happy to come back. Speaking to the tagging, in hip hop slang, streets is watching has never been more true as when you're tagging, because those services are 99 of 100 times are not going to do anything like your text, whatever, retweet, whatever. Mm-hmm. But if you have not done that, they know. And there have been times where I've had a service come back to me and be like, well, we added so-and-so to the playlist and they didn't do anything with it. And you're like,
yeah, mind blowing. Yep, exactly. Well, interesting. Like I said, I could sit here and ask you questions all day. I'm going to go ahead and wind this down, but I really appreciate you taking the time. I'm probably going to ask you to come back. I hope that's okay.
I'm more than happy to come back and this has been really fun. I have no idea how it's been. Well, I do. I'm that guy who's going to talk forever, but
hey, no, I love it. I hear the passion and that's what we like. That's why I like working with you, to be honest with you, because I know you're going to give your all on anything that I give you, and you're going to help educate, the artists that I work with and myself. So, great stuff. Any, I guess, wrap up words or anything you want to just, any last minute advice you can give to, who is it? Jimmy on the block.
Jimmy from the block. Jimmy, let me tell you something. Time is your friend. The faster you want to get something out, the more likely it is that your release is going to be unsuccessful. Coming up with a plan, understanding your audience, taking the time to be able to execute that plan properly with the right amount of time, whether it's going to be one pre-release single before your album, if you're going to waterfall an entire EP and then drop your album, however you want to do it. There's a million different ways to skin a cat, but you have to take the time to be able to come up with a plan to set yourself up for success. If you do anything short of that, you're setting yourself up for failure.
Yep. I love it, Jeep. I appreciate you taking the time. Thank you so much. Enjoy your new home.
All right. Hopefully I'll be back soon.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Take you out of here. I'd like to thank everybody for taking the time again. I'd also just like to remind everybody we have some great sponsors. Please check them out. We will be reposting this video on our Instagram and on LinkedIn. We are streaming live right now on YouTube. Again, just want to thank everybody for taking the time to view this podcast for this streaming session. This is number 12 of Breakpoint Now. And I also want to just take this time to just tell everybody that, go out, vote, stand in line, whatever, get your voice heard. I don't care who you're voting for as long as you vote. I'm really, really hoping that this one shows more participation than ever. I feel like everybody's passionate about it, so I'm hoping that shows in the polls. But I just want to just say, get out there, vote, share your voice. Now's the time. This is Isaac Gordon with Breakpoint Booking, and for Breakpoint Now, again, thank you for taking the time. Signing out. Hope everybody is out there doing well during the pandemic. Stay safe, follow government guidelines, and mask up. Peace. Go Browns.